Hello, Ricky's here again. I'm going to repot my very large Noble A Dendrobium. It's one of the Spring Dream types. It's a white flower. I think it's Komiko because it starts with purple flashes, but then they fade and it goes to white, so it could be the more common Apollon. I'm ever so pleased with this one. It's always grown very well for me. It came as this cane in flower. Just this a sec, because I think it's really showing you what we need to see. There we go. That's better. So it came with this one, which was in flower all the way down, and a cane has been cut off, and a tiny little stump came there. It put this one up, which grew bigger than the previous one last year, grew very nicely. Tried to flower on this earlier on. I think it had 3 or 4 pairs of flowers on. It then put up 5 cakeys. I've taken 4 off. There's one still on here because it's not growing roots as I want it to. It's growing very strongly. As a plant, it's not growing roots, which it needs to do before I can detach it. The others, which I've already done, were better. This cane, I'll have to cock it over so you can see it. This is this year's cane, and it just goes on and on and on. It's an absolute monster. It's really big and thick, and it hasn't stopped growing. There's another leaf in there yet. So that's got more growing to do. This is a big plant. Now, you will see why it needs repotting. Don't worry about the drips. I've just dumped it in water for a few minutes to soften the roots up. You can see why it's absolutely shot bang full. There's not a lot of tips, but with the new growth growing, and a lot of these roots looking as if they're still viable, I don't really have any great qualms about trying to repot it now. So let's reset the camera so you can see the pot. There we go. And let's see what we've got. Now, probably the first thing to do is to take the stakes off. It's a big, tall plant. It's very, very unstable. One of the disadvantages I've actually got in repotting it is, at the moment, I don't have a pot sleeve to put it in. And if I'm not ever so careful, this is just going to overbalance and it's just going to hit the deck too easily. So I'll have to be as careful can be when we come down to it. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, I have been very, very careful with these ties. What I want to avoid, and what I've done on some of these things, is put these ties on too tightly. So I've done it so that the plant is gripped as it is when I put the tie on. And if the cane swells at that point, there's nowhere for the cane to go, and because of that you end up with a smaller area in the cane. It sort of bulges around either side, and that's no good to anybody. So let's see if I can get it out of the pot without causing too much damage. There we go. think it's going to go back in there. I have bought this, that is a 16cm pot, and I bought an 18.5 earlier on today with repotting this thing in mind. Now it's been in here quite a while. I'm not sure without getting my records out, but it's been in this medium a little while. You can see that it has by the amount of root that's in it. Everybody says that all food like to be root bound. Well, this one must be in seventh heaven is all I can say. You've got some very large roots coming off the new growth, which is great. Lots of really good roots coming off that. Stuff on the back is nowhere near as good. Well, that's such a surprise, isn't it? Because you're really talking about roots that have been around for at least a year, if not longer. So I'm half expecting to chop quite a lot of old roots away, and then we'll basically see whether or not these early bulbs are ready for coming off, which they might well be. But if they, I mean, they're nicely full, even if they're not very big, the energy stores, it's not an issue in terms of what I can get into the pot. It needs moving over so that the back of the plant, I know that's actually split that piece of wood. Off you come there. But anyway, I think while I finish this is just going to get boring now. I'll turn the camera off for a little bit and I'll finish messing around with this. I'll come back shortly. Okay, I've had a go through with it. I've cleaned it up. I've taken a lot of bits of manky root off, but the surprising thing for me actually is that very few of them, relatively speaking, were actually dead roots. There were nearly all of them failed branches. So we've got some bits there that I've missed. It is a branching rootstock. There are a number, you can see one there, several over here, growing tips. This is some very old root, but again you've got branches and growing tips. So this is a plant which is doing very well actually, very well indeed. So I'm very pleased with what I've found so far. And I really have not had to take a lot off. What I have done is taken off the last remnants of the sphagnum plug, which I'd missed last time. I have gone underneath and taken out all the very old and very thin seedling roots, which were no good to anybody, were definitely dead. So that's really, apart from a few little bits like that one, as I say, which is a failed branch really, as much as anything else. I'm reasonably close to getting ready to repot that. Not going to bother putting it under the tap. I don't think I'm going to gain anything by it. we've got probably not much by way of roots left coming from this back end of the plant, but I'm going to leave those alone this time. Next time I've no doubt that that's going to want those taken off. But I think, given the amount of roots it's got and the idea that you're supposed to give them room to grow for a couple of years, if possible, then I think that's what it wants really. So apart from a few last remaining duff looking roots, which there aren't many of, I'm sure more experienced people than me would have found a few more, but I'm not, honestly not that concerned. I don't think that we've got too much to worry about with this. As I say, it's branching, the little branch just there. So even though some of these roots are old and not looking great, they're still quite viable. So I think if that goes back in there like that, and I can keep them fairly upright in the pot like that, it'll be a lot more stable as well. So I am going to pot this back up as it was last time in a pure bark. Seems to have done extremely well in just in pure bark. I'm using Burnham's medium bark, which I've used before and I like. This is one actually that I had them bring to me at an orchid event at Royal Horticultural Gardens at Harlow Car near Knaresborough. It's the medium bag, which is £12. Handy bag, £12 of medium bark. And that's going to do me quite nicely for a bit. What I was extremely pleased to find, actually quite surprised to find to be honest, was it was ziplock tied shut. Fair enough, you'd expect that. It's it's in a big bag, it wants closing it shut, it wants keeping nice and tight. But it's an unusual type, it's a multi-use one. There's a little lever on it so you can put it on, press a little lever and then you can take it off. Do what you want to do, put it back. Next time you want to use it, press the little lever, take it off and away you go again. Now this is going in quite well. I think it's going to need staking. I don't think it's going to sit very nicely by itself. So a big staking because I think it's a big plant. And if I don't put a big stake in, it's just not going to do the job. Because that stake I think can handle, certainly handle that one. That can go on there, that's got that one. And then I can tie last year's cane. The original cane to that one in the same way. I've got that one done. So all I've got to do now is just tie that one to it, and it's going to be pretty good, I think. A lot better because it's more, the weight now is much more centred in the pot than it was before, and it's got room to go. I just hope I've got the right orientation for the next new growth. away at this bark to try and make it go down and fill all the air gaps and what have you, and here it go, crunch. It takes a bit of courage. I am assured that it's the bark, not the roots. If the roots are any good, the roots will be fine. So, shall I put another one in, given that that one's got a cakey on it? Yes, I think so. So I'll put that one on there, and now I can put a tie wrap round that. Where are you, brute? Yes, so I hope that now it's been repotted and it's got a bit more breathing space and the roots have been cleaned up. We'll see this cakey start to go. It's starting to develop more roots and I can get this off, but it's actually looking quite smart. So that is my Spring Dream Dendrobium, whether it's Komiko or Apollon, I have absolutely no idea. As I think it's Komiko, which has got purple tinges to it, but that's purely my guess. You can see now what a big plant that is. It's not big as they go, but that's probably one of the best plants I've got. It came from IKEA, it wasn't a lot of money, and yet it's really done well for me. Now last year I kept it too warm for too long, I think. I kept feeding it and watering it, and now I know that it's got to be a lot cooler and have a lot less water starting fairly soon. So that is going to stay in here this winter, and it gets down quite happily to 12 degrees, 14 degrees in here in the winter, and if I dry that off, and especially if I stand it on the windowsill over there where those are, it should get all the chill it needs to make it flower. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope it's not been too boring, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.